Welcome everybody on Rumble. We have a lot of people waiting on Rumble, so that's kind of awesome. So I'll make sure that I check the Rumble chat. We just wanted to do a carnivore update, and take any questions, and also answer some questions. And I'm going to start out um, answering, and hopefully for most people this will sound weird, even though we get these very strange comments, but you get these Christian comments, and I realize Christian is a very broad term in postmodern America, and it means much less or more than it used to mean.
Before we get into it, can we just recap where we are on Carnivore?
Sure.
Just for those of you who are new or just following us along or been like, oh, y'all went Carnivore? I didn't even know. So we are on day 58 of Carnivore, and we hold that day lightly because our first 2 weeks we still had some fruit in the house and we were still incorporating fruit smoothies. I don't know so much about you. I don't think you were, but me and the kids were still once a day doing that for the first 2 weeks or so. So day 58 is like in quotes because we did just jump right in the deep end, but we
aren't purists anyway, so
we weren't 100% purist on it. But I would say for the past I don't know how many days that is now, we've been pretty doggone purist about it. I mean, I don't think that there's been anything, maybe some slight variations just because it's our whole entire family of 8. So there might have been like somebody who had a hamburger bun on his hamburger,
rascal
or something like that, but not like, anything crazy off the deep end. I mean, we just really went hardcore. And my number one reasoning for doing it, okay, so y'all know that, my number one reasoning for doing it was to be more sustainable on our homestead. And I know there is this huge influx of people right now that are new to
homesteading tsunami.
The homesteading tsunami is happening. Supposedly, this is what I hear. And,
it's happening.
And I think we can very much speak to that. Maybe we'll do another video another time speaking to that, how to be sustainable on your homestead, because we have been homesteading, backyard homesteading, big ranch style homesteading, well, medium ranch style homesteading for
ranchette
many years now, 18 years and counting. And we always struggled with sustainability. And when I saw this carnivore thing just keep coming up year after year after year, I believe Justin Rhodes was the first one who spoke about it that I heard of, and then in the homestead realm. And that was several years back, and they were doing it for different medical reasons that they had to do it. But it just kept coming up and coming up, and I was just ready to like tackle this thing at this point. Going back now 58 days ago, I was like, oh, we have our own meat, like we can do this, and this would be amazing. Like, not to have all the pressure of having to grow all of this food. I could just focus on growing our meat. So that's a little of our why and how we got to where we are today at day 58. And then, we're going to jump in and answer some questions for y'all. But, and then maybe we'll switch over to what it looks like for us, like what we eat in a day kind of deal. So that way we can kind of break it down for y'all, what our days look like.
Maybe. And if you want to ask a question, just put it in all caps or write question, so that way we can track it. I don't have anything coming up in the chat display, which is kind of weird. And there's only 21 people. Hey, Wilmer, how you doing?
Hey there.
There's only 21 people on YouTube, and there's 7 on Rumble. And this is why, y'all, you can check the information down below, but sign up to our podcast, because we're thoroughly sick of the shadow ban technocrat scum on the tube channel deal. So we're doing the podcast. We just posted another podcast today. So check us out. The Audio Boom. If you use the Audio Boom link, you can go on there, and wherever you listen to your podcast, join us there. And also we are on Fountain. So I really like the Fountain app as a podcaster, and I love the value for value concept and
the
podcasting 2.0.
And the podcast is called
The Fearless Podcast.
Yes.
So I plugged our podcast and I forgot to mention the title, which would have been a major faux pas, but that's why I married my beautiful wife.
There you go. Johnny Midas says day 46 on Carnivore. That's awesome.
So you're right behind us, Johnny. Congratulations. How you feeling, Johnny? So I wanted to kind of, do you recommend a carnivore cookbook? Not yet.
The 5 Minute Body, you can look her up on YouTube, 5 Minute Body. She does an amazing job. She's about 40 years old, I believe, and she has an awesome accent, and she's on YouTube, and she does a lot of interviews with doctors, lots of different diversity on there from different carnivore doctors, and she does have like classes and courses with getting started and a cookbook. So, and she does not a lot, but she does some like what I eat in a day as well. So if you're looking for some different ideas, she has that 5 Minute Body.
Yeah, Rumble's treating us okay, but it's still Rumble. It's just got no bandwidth. So, we're doing the Fearless podcast to push the bandwidth and put out more information. And so I wanted to go live. One, I'm testing the bandwidth of our YouTube channel. And as you can see, there's 30 people on here. So welcome to the new normal. My buddy Chris over at the Financial Prepper just got dinged for some Bunter Hyden Joe bribing thing. So he's in the timeout chair. And it's very frustrating, especially when you're trying to develop, virtual friendships and a community and push information out and communicate back and forth and talk. And then they just like cut your legs out from under you. And it would be different if when you came back, you weren't in this mega shadow ban and you became totally irrelevant. So
the new normal. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Vilma.
Okay. So jump on into it. Answer your question you were asking.
So we get these weird air quotes Christian comments about, like, some people say, well, I'm just going to eat all the foods that God has created for us, or I'm going to eat a well-balanced, normal distribution of all of God's creation and all these different things. You get all of these, and most of the time that's a backhanded comment, or what I like to refer to as cyber Pharisaism, where you just can't say what you want to say, but you say it in some kind of clandestine thing that sounds hyper spiritual. And then we get like, yeah, but you shouldn't do that or eat that, because then why does Jesus talk about bread all the time? Yeah. And one guy was like, and what about the manna from heaven? So I had to systematically, I'm like, well, first off, manna was an absolute miracle that only existed for a very particular time in history. It literally was sent from heaven by God, and it never existed prior to that, and it never existed after that. So that is an incredibly weird, I don't even know why you're bringing that up, what that has to do with food, period. And then, there's all this reference to bread. And I'm like, well, look, in context and in scripture, many times, not all times, but many times, bread just refers to food in general. Sometimes meat in scripture won't just refer to flesh. Sometimes meat in scripture refers to food in general. So you can't just say, well, it says bread here, and Jesus is the bread of life. So, you need to eat bread. And I'm like, well, that's one, that is, and that is the state of our theology today and our systematic theology. It's incredibly shallow. It's completely usually isolated, and it's usually ripped from its context and like dangling in midair. So, so that's why I kind of wanted to talk about this. And, my illustration to this one gentleman about all this, like Jesus is the bread of life and all this stuff about bread. And it really has to do with, you know, if you're using ancient unmodified grains.
Yes.
But now here's the thing. Here's the thing. We continued to improve our diet, and try to find better things and try to eat organic, non-GMO and all these things, and einkorn and ancient grains and all this stuff.
Mhm.
And the thing is when you're doing that and you still feel kind of crummy,
right? You still have issues, right?
Yeah, you're like, wow, like the whole brain fog thing. And I didn't even, I would hear people talk about brain fog all the time, and I didn't know what it was until I didn't have it anymore. And to be real transparent right now, like even currently with my carnivore, I'm in a low spot, and it might just be maybe, you know, it's like Dr. Barry said, you still get sick. You still deal with life. You're not, you don't become superhuman. And there are people that want to pretend like, oh yeah, like if I do this, I will never, ever get sick again.
Right.
I will, you know, it's like the virus terrain theory argument.
Yeah.
You know, the reason that I reject in a way terrain theory, you know, there's lots of this stuff that came up with terrain versus virus, is we can watch a bug, whatever, if you don't want to call it a virus or whatever, we can watch one person in our family get a bug, and then it'll go boop, 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 and it just goes right around. It transmits or whatever. Now that cannot be terrain. No. All of our immune systems can't be systematically clobbered like sequentially. That anecdotally, upon just examining that, it would have certainly appear that there's somehow this, whatever, if you don't want to call it a virus, it's getting transmitted.
And I think that some of it too, yes, it doesn't make you superhuman if you're just eating this perfect diet. There's still life. There's a whole lot else that goes into life other than what you eat, y'all. There is so many factors, right? You can eat a perfect diet and you can still have life happen to you, right? You can still have disease. You can have car accidents. You can have stress. You can have uncontrolled circumstances, right? Lots of things. And I think with carnivore, it's finding what works for you. Obviously, right now I'm having some decaf coffee, and it's like a fatty latte. So it's just some butter. We introduced butter back into our diet today, and it's just cream. It's just, look at the ingredients, you know, when you're buying butter. So this is just made with cream, and that's it. So I am adding in Redmond's real salt to it when we're using it for other things, but we're just trying it out. In the past, butter has always led to massive ear infections, but since going carnivore, everybody's inner ear workings has all changed. So one thing that balances out with carnivore is your ear wax and your fluid and all of that stuff. So I'm hoping that by reintroducing butter back into our diet, we'll be okay with it. And it's going to increase the fat. What I'm saying is that you got to find what style works for you within carnivore. Give yourself some grace.
Yeah.
And maybe we're, you know, not feeling optimal because there's stress this week, or maybe we're just not feeling optimal because our immune system is a little bit down.
When the reason I say I'm not feeling optimal is because when I first started on carnivore, you know, and my sleep, I do have better and worse sleep, you know. My sleep by and large is astronomically better.
Yes.
It doesn't mean that every night is perfect or whatever. And I definitely am still affected by the moon. So I am lunatic, y'all. And that's what happened the other night. It was a full moon and I could not fall asleep. And but so I am lunatic. But Carnivore Ron says, I'm a Jewish carnivore. In 98, I was diagnosed as allergic to gluten in wheat. That started my wellness journey. I've eaten carnivore for 5 years. My autoimmune systems have vanished.
Absolutely.
And
that's
wonderful. That's what we're seeing is, and that's part of talking about it. This is we're talking about it for healing. Like
Yes.
if I didn't have the shoulder issues would I have even thought about doing this? Maybe not. But if I hadn't, then I wouldn't have had the sleep benefit that I've experienced or all the other benefits that I've experienced. And look, I'm still eating the fruit we grow.
But it's minimal. It's so minimal. It's like when you say like you're going out and if y'all pick like a couple figs and you have one or two like every few days, it's like a little tiny treat when you're outside. It's not like you're sitting down and having a bowl of figs. You're just not having that. So, I mean, I think just that minimal because you do have inflammation. So
yeah, and
I'm just being really transparent.
Yeah, and I don't think that if I gorged out on fruit, I don't think it would bother my inflammation. But, you know, because I don't have to have some kind of like puritanical construct. That's my other point. Is like, well, Shafee says this, and this guy says this, and this guy, okay, and we all respond. And now, if I did eat some fruit edible, I'd be like, oh, I'm not going to do that again. I think that's what's a very powerful thing. Even when you're eating clean, we were eating pretty clean, y'all.
Extremely clean.
And we were not eating processed sugar or anything like that. But you can still be addicted to food, right? And then so now if I decide like, oh, I'm going to cheat, like because stuff will, they'll buy ice cream or different things, right? And I'm like, or we were at a church thing, right? And there was ice cream there, and everybody decided to cheat and eat it. I'm like, that is definitely not worth it. It's certainly not worth the cheat, and it's really not worth what I'm going to feel like after I eat it. And that's trashy, crummy ice cream. It's not even good. So and that's kind of the beauty of it is it, you feel so good when you do it and you feel bad when you cheat. It's a self-regulating.
And you're no longer run by your addiction to food. You're no longer hungry. And that's huge. I would say that eating how we ate before, just whole foods out of our pantry. I mean, we've done that for years now. And it's just whole single ingredient foods from our pantry and from our freezer. But it was like a plate full of food and then like a little bit of meat and then or a lot of meat and a plate full of food. And then when we were done dinner, you were still like, okay, what's the dessert? Okay, oh, we made cookies or we made pie or a cake or whatever. Oh, I want 2 pieces. You know what I mean? And it was like when we had even those clean carbs, those single ingredient carbs, it was still like your desire for food. You just could never get full. Like you just never felt all the way full, or you ate too much and you just felt gross. Like you were just like, oh yeah, now I just like feel stuffed. Like I feel like I'm over full, like on the wrong thing.
Yeah. Julie's asking, are you finding certain meats make you feel better than others?
We're basically eating beef is what our
beef and bacon.
Yeah. I still buy bacon for everybody, so that way it keeps everybody in the house happy.
And I would say, and I've already said this, I want to cut out I want to cut out the pork. Not that it makes me feel bad, but
you just don't prefer
I don't
it.
really like the taste of it, but I do have to be really honest. There is something about bacon and the fat in bacon that's satisfying. I mean, obviously it tastes good, but there's something about that really high fat content that even in many cuts of beef, you can get close to that fat content, but it's definitely a challenge. And certainly, because we process whole cows, we're going to eat our whole cow. So you're going to get, and that's one thing that's been really awesome about our butcher is we've basically asked them to max out that fat meat mix. So I think they're like, it's like a 40-60.
Yes,
split.
They couldn't get it to 50-50, 50% fat in the ground beef, but they could get it up as high as they could. And it might have been like 60-40, something like that. So I think I'm saying that backwards, 40, 60, something like that. They put all of the fat from the cow back into the ground beef for me. So that's great. And another thing that we're going to be adding coming up this week is grass-fed, grass-finished tallow. And because I don't always have extra because we're getting it added right back into our ground beef, there's no extra left over. So I did go ahead and purchase some of that. So I'm excited to try that. So we're just tweaking things. We're also trying to up our fat. So that was the thing with reintroducing the butter today, because other than that, we're dairy free. And I have thyroid history. You have thyroid history. So for that reason, we stay away from dairy and liquid dairy. All of the doctors will kind of, as a consensus, say liquid dairy is great if you want to put on weight. I mean, it'll put on 500 pounds on a baby calf. If you want to do that, that's wonderful. I don't want to put on weight. My husband doesn't need to put on weight. So we're just doing butter.
And one thing that, relatively speaking, to me, vegetables are disgusting. They are, you know, and it's funny. I have a very good friend that's incredibly overweight. Buddy, if you're watching, I love you. And I won't even say your name, but you know, and hopefully he's trying to do this carnivore thing, but he always tells me, he's like, my problem is I love vegetables. I'm like, look, man, we're both men. We can talk about this. Your problem is not that you love vegetables, bro. But in reality, and Saladino has a t-shirt about this, something about kale. I can't exactly remember, or maybe I can't say it out loud, something like that. But I concur with the sentiment, at least. But you know, that's my thoughts on vegetables. Now, I love corn. I can honestly say I love corn on the like fresh corn on the cob.
You have not had any, and our corn really grew tremendously this year. Now the kids picked a couple
irony, but
ears, and they've just had it fresh out in the yard running around. So yeah, maybe we should get into some of how it's looked like our diet, what we've been eating from day to day. We can kind of share that because that's probably really helpful. So do you want me to start? Because it is different. Me and you are different.
Yeah, sure. And I'm just going
to backing up to the beginning. Well, let's skip the first couple of weeks because that was a little, well, if y'all want to know. So back up to the beginning. We'll just do that. So I started with doing sausage in the morning because we have our own sausage, but you can do whatever you have access to. But I would have some breakfast sausage and my coffee in the morning. And I allowed myself that. We've been dairy free for 5 years. So I just use the heavy coconut cream. And that's what I use in my coffee. I never put sugar in it anyway since 5 years ago. So I'm not used to sugary coffee anyway, so that's totally fine. So my coffee didn't change. My morning routine did not change, except for the fact that instead of fasting in the morning, I went ahead and did sausage in the morning. Now, the little kids, I would do sausage and eggs for them. And some mornings I would even fry up a couple eggs and put it on top of my sausage and have it like that. And then lunchtime, for the first couple weeks, we did fruit smoothies for lunch, just meaning frozen fruit, water, and a scoop of protein powder. And I know we didn't need that because we were already eating high protein, but we had it in the house. So that's what we did.
We still have a lot of protein powder.
Yeah. So moving on to the second and third week and beyond, we didn't have any more fruit or fruit smoothies. So then it was just sausage and eggs. And then for lunch, I would do like ground beef or hamburgers. We really got into making hamburgers. So I would just make up a whole bunch and put them in the refrigerator, and we could just pull them out as we wanted them, just kind of to snack on throughout the day. They're great reheated in some bacon grease, but I'm going to be trying to reheat them in tallow too. And then for our dinners, I would just pull a bunch of beef out of the freezer, put it in the Instapot, and let it cook for about 2 hours, 2.5 hours. And we would eat whatever we had. Now, we have had steaks twice now, And that's been really wonderful. And we're a big family. So even raising our own cows, it's not unlimited steaks.
Right.
Steaks are still like a novelty item. But we'll have a few more nights for steaks. But mainly our meals are just like roast in the Instapot, or hamburgers. We do hamburgers a few nights a week. Or we can do, you know, eggs and sausage is our thing. So that's kind of been like our go-to meals, which are really, really simple. And me and the kids, when we got off of the fruit, you know, for the beginning first few weeks, we had frozen blueberries and frozen strawberries. We still have them in the freezer, but it's funny, nobody's touched them in like a couple weeks or more. Nobody has touched them. And I keep telling the kids, if you want to have fruit smoothies, you're more than welcome to have them. But no, they're like, we don't want them. And if you want the frozen fruit, you're more than welcome to have it. Like, just, they were eating, my little kids were eating frozen blueberries for the first few weeks like nobody's business. Like, they would just get out like bowlfuls of blueberries and they were just eating them constant. And I think it was just the switch from just no carbs to like their body still wanted some type of sugar, and that was their sugar. And I was still eating like a handful of blueberries mainly in the evenings, but it didn't last long. And little by little, I don't know if you remember this or not, but I would be sitting there in the living room and I'd have like a cup of blueberries and then I'd start to eat them and I'm like, oh, do you want these? I'm done. Like, I don't want these anymore. And I would hand them over to you and you're like, nah, I don't need them. You know, you were quicker, I think, to cut out the berries than I was.
Yes. Yeah, I always only ate like once or twice a day anyway. I think a lot of that has a lot to do with it. You know, like for example, the lion diet where you eat once a day. I believe there's a lot to that. Obviously, that has a direct impact on your blood sugar. A lot of this circulates around your blood sugar. I was hypoglycemic and I had an underactive thyroid, and I think that was actually healed through diet and exercise before I know before I started on this, because when the last two times I got my blood work done, my sugar was good and my thyroid was good. And you know, other than exercise and diet and the blessing of having the hypoglycemia is I've always been very conscious of any kind of sugar that I eat, and it makes me not want to eat like super sugary stuff just because it makes me feel whack. Now real fruit off the tree fruit or fruit off the bush fruit never ever impacted my sugar in a negative way.
Now, you want to explain what you eat in a day?
So, and I really want to kind of switch this up, but right now I drink a coffee in the morning with 4 to 5 eggs, and a little bit of heavy coconut cream and a teaspoon of honey.
So how are you switching that up?
Well, I want to cut out that meal in the morning and just eat when I get home. I want to shrink my eating window and see. I just want to switch it up. I think there's a lot of value to switching it up and manipulating your food eating window. And there's a lot of value in fasting.
Yes.
And my buddy Billy on the Permaculture Pimpcast, he's been studying a lot about fasting and doing a lot of different types of fasts. There's so much value in that. And now as a Christian, there's spiritual value in it where you discipline yourself to like, no, I'm not going to eat. No, why? Because I am not, my stomach does not control me.
Right.
Like
and
I control.
There's certain people that are all about the fasting, and then there's other people that are totally against the fasting. I've implemented the fasting the last few weeks. I would say, I stop eating at a certain time in the evening, and whether that's 6 o'clock or like some nights it's gone late and it'll be like 8 o'clock. Say I have this ice cream, this homemade ice cream recipe that I make for me and the kids. And I don't usually eat it, but like maybe once every couple days I will eat it. And again, it's dairy free. It's heavy coconut cream, and I know there's some people that are totally carnivore and keto is totally fine with heavy coconut cream, and then there's some people that are like, that's from a plant, whatever. Okay, so we can't buy pure heavy whipping cream here. It just does not exist. So,
maybe
from
the local dairy.
We're going to go to the dairy on Monday and see if they can get us some heavy whipping cream. But our heavy whipping cream options at the stores are chocked full of a bunch of chemicals and nasty stuff that my kids do not tolerate at all. Like very, very much don't tolerate. So so we stick with the coconut cream, the heavy coconut cream, and eggs. I load it with our eggs from our farm and a little bit of vanilla and a tablespoon of our honey, and that's our ice cream recipe. And so it's really like all fat. There's nothing that's going to trigger your carbs at all in the heavy coconut cream. It's not going to throw you out of ketosis at all. And then yeah, the eggs. So it's basically like eggs and heavy cream is basically our ice cream. So I'll have that every couple days. My little ones want it every single day, and I'm all about it because it's like 10 eggs in there. So they're getting their eggs, which is really great on carnivore. But what I was going to say is I've been fasting. So I'll stop eating, say 6 o'clock the night before. It will be my last meal. And I'll go about 16 hours before I have my first meal. So most of the time that's like 1 o'clock. Sometimes it's like if I ate really late, say it'll be 3 o'clock in the afternoon. And that's when I have my first meal. So if my first meal starts at 1, I might eat a big meal then, and then I might eat again in that window before 6, and then that'll be it. So I have a very small eating window, and then I'm back fasting again for 16 hours. And I feel really good like that. My exception is my coffee, and I'm switching up. This is what I'm switching up because I've been listening to Dr. Bright, who is a woman doctor in Italy, and she specializes in thyroid health. And she recommended, this is what she does personally. I know a lot of carnivores are anti-coffee, but what she does is decaf, and she explains all the reasons why. And she puts butter into her coffee. So I know the 5-Minute Body Girl, who's carnivore, who interviews people. She's great. If y'all haven't checked her out, the interviews are amazing that she does over there. 5-Minute Body, but she just has her regular coffee. She does not do decaf, and she puts butter in it, and she calls that her fatty latte, and it's 1 ounce of butter. So that's kind of something that I'm switching up. I don't need the caffeine. You enjoy the caffeine in the morning. I don't need the caffeine.
Yeah,
I just like the ritual.
I enjoy the caffeine for many reasons, but I'm going to touch on 2 comments here. Shelly said, my brother and sister-in-law have been carnivore for a couple years, and for over a year now, the husband's triglycerides are over 700. The wife's LDL is really high, like over 250. So first off, LDL was never high at 250 until statins became the drug of choice. So there was no such, even when they talked about HDL and LDL, which is a cycle of a system, right? HDL takes the fat out of the cell, LDL puts the fat into the cell. So that's why, therefore, if you're anti-science moron and you're pushing a statin drug, you're going to say, oh, well, the cholesterol going into the cell is bad, the cholesterol coming out of the cell is good. That's the kind of like, brain dead. That's Fauci science, right? So triglycerides and LDL and HDL, they're irrelevant if you're eating properly and if you're not eating sugar. And that is an absolute proven fact that you can observe that. That's observable. And, if you did my and this was even before I started straight carnivore. My LDL was high, you know, it was like 2 whatever, and my HDL, you know, it was out of whack according to statin science, according to big pharma. Okay. But you know, that's where you're getting all of that triglycerides and heart disease stuff. They've been low fat and everybody's been dying of heart disease. Secondarily,
and there's a lot of really great doctors that you can listen to. I just listened to a heart surgeon interview today on the 5-Minute Body channel, and he was really breaking down and going through all of the cholesterol things in regards to heart health and how he monitors his patients with it, and what things that he's actually concerned about and what things he would not be concerned about as far as triglycerides and all of those types of things. And, you know, carnivore is a spectrum, right? So there's like people that are eating carnivore that are eating lunch meat and hot dogs, right? And then there's people that are eating carnivore over here that is like grass-fed, grass-finished beef and water, right? Yeah. So there is a whole spectrum of in between. So I think if you're doing something, and all of these doctors encourage you get blood work done like every 3 months, but if you're doing something and it's not working, there's so much variation in this lifestyle that you can say, oh, I was eating all this pork or all this sausage. Oh, wow. Let me try taking out the pork and taking out the sausage and just doing the beef. Or, oh, I was eating all of this lunch meat, or I was eating all these pork rinds and it really had all this oil in it, and I thought the pork rinds were okay, or I thought cheese was okay, and now let me try taking that out because I'm seeing this or that. Like, there's so many variables.
Not only that, you know, Carnivore Ron makes a really good point about the triglycerides, because you know, from personal experience and from other people's blood work, I'm not seeing triglycerides off the charts like that. I've seen them high, but there are a lot of people, y'all, and they say they're doing one thing and they're not.
Right. That could
be. They're cheating. They're perpetually cheating. And I mean, this is what food addiction does, y'all. I'm not an alcoholic. Oh, well, when was late? Oh, I haven't drunk. Yeah, you're an alcoholic and you're lying about it, you know, right. Just like all these people on drugs. No, I don't take drugs. You know, it's the same thing with your food.
But I got to say hi to Carnivore Ron. Me and Carnivore Ron met the other day on
Take It Easy, Texas Mom.
On Homestead How. And,
right.
And
Listen, Ron.
Carnivore Ron's been on Carnivore for how many years?
5 years. Yeah.
Oh, 5 years.
See, okay. Ron, I pay attention to you, buddy.
So yeah, anyway, we're honored.
Yeah. And this is what's great.
To have you on here.
It's so bizarre because you'll get all this anecdotal, like, you can't just eat meat, you'll eventually die. No, I mean, that's a great hyperbolic statement, but there's people like Sean Baker that have been doing this for over 7 years. Right. Mm-hmm. And Sean does it because he feels good.
Right.
He's a competitive athlete and he continues to perform better. And he was like, and when I stop feeling good or performing better, I won't do it anymore. Mm-hmm. And that's, you know, this isn't a religion, y'all. This is what was so weird about all of the Christianese questions, you know, about trying to either, let me find reasons from scripture on why you should be able to do that.
In that camp, like, I had a friend who was preaching to me carnivore for years now. Now she preaches it, but she doesn't do it.
Right.
She does carnivore and she does keto-ish when she feels like it, in between like her.
And she cheats on a daily basis.
All of her other fun things that she does in life. So, which are 99% of the time.
Because look, y'all, if you were really doing it within 30 days, everybody will know.
Yeah. Well, and so I gave her all of those hyper spiritual reasons, right? I gave her the, you know, Jesus ate bread and fish, and, you know, what about the garden? And God created all these things. And hey, y'all, when we're in heaven, I'm eating all the things, okay? We're going to eat all the things. I will have no problem eating bread with Jesus when we're in heaven.
Hallelujah.
I'm going to have no problem eating from all the trees and all the fruit, and it'll all be perfect.
And I'm not going to stop eating my fruit. Here's the thing, though. And this is where the sustainability and homestead thing comes in, right? Like if you try to grow a garden down here, now look, if it's your full-time job and that's all you have to do, and in a very real way, that should be, you know, food used to be such a predominant thing in everybody's life because, like, if you don't eat, you die, right? But this is the same thing that plays into this, like, well-rounded, healthy, balanced, you know, 20% of this and 20% of that, and fresh berries and look, none of this stuff existed before the industrialization of big food. Like you couldn't eat this well-balanced, healthy meal if you didn't have a grocery store. And even if you were raising all of this stuff.
It's limited. The season is limited. Like our season for our fig trees, where the little kids can go out and grab a fig and have a fig, it is so limited. We're not going to be bringing in the figs and preserving them and throwing them in sugar and loading our pantry full of fig jam. We're not going to do that. Well, you can have figs as they're ripe on the tree. And even Dr. Barry said they have pear trees. And he's like, when those pear trees come into season, guess what? Him and his wife and his little children, they're going to be eating their pears because they're ripe, they're in season, and they're going to eat them. Now, we're not going to bring them in and can them all up and have them all winter long and eat pears all winter. Preserved in sugar. We're not going to do that. But there's nothing wrong with eating what you have in your own backyard as it's
when it's
available.
In season. That's when you would have
limited.
Eaten it anyway, and it's so limited. And then here, everything's limited because once the heat maxes out, you have to put so much water on everything. And there's so much peace. You know, before when you're like, I got all this stuff has to grow and I need to preserve it and I need to stack it in a room and in cans. And maybe I'm deluded, right? Maybe that's still the case and I'm just deluded or whatever.
I don't think so.
But there's so much peace in like, well, whatever, however it goes, it goes. And if we eat it, great. And if we don't eat it, great. And the beauty of the fruit is whatever fruit drops on the ground, the different critters eat. And it's fodder. And it's great because it's not like, well, I need all of these trees to succeed. And, you know, we have 400. So but even having 400 and as awesome as they're doing and is flourishing, you know, a lot of different things are loaded right now, but it becomes so dry, right? That a lot of that stuff is either going to get aborted or whatever. And, you know, it's such a challenge to try to keep it all watered. I want to keep stuff alive.
It's just so freeing to not have all of that pressure, you know, and, you know, I had a goal to set up my pantry room, and I set it up and I filled up that pantry, y'all. Many of you came along with me while I filled up the pantry. The pantry was full to the brim. It's still 85%, 90% full in there. And now we're just looking at it and I'm like, we don't need all this. How freeing, how wonderful is this? We don't need all of this food. All we need,
so much pressure off.
Yeah, like, I mean, just the freedom of that is amazing, you know? So actually, I didn't tell you this, but we have a long-term plan for the pantry. Maybe I shouldn't spring it on you.
Yeah, don't tell me.
I won't tell you. We do have a plan for the pantry.
I know. Another bathroom.
No, it's not going to be a bathroom. It's way more exciting than that.
Observatory to stargaze.
No.
So another thing that's rather fascinating to consider is how efficiently and effectively God created ruminant animals to convert arable land into food. And this is what these plant-basters and cricket slurpers, you know, they mess with all the data And nobody wants to point out the fact that ruminant animals convert arable land. One, it improves the quality of the land and the soil. And two, it creates delicious, nutritious food. What's more fascinating, as referencing beef and cows, is they just did a long-term study on glyphosate and other chemicals, and they are saying that the cow, through its stomach process, that those chemicals are not deposited in the meat and the fat.
Yes. Yep. That was a study that came out. I believe it was Texas A&M, but I could be wrong. Dr. Chafee was talking about that study. It's really interesting. And, you know, we know from our own research that, you know, a lot of these organic plants and organic salads and organic fruits and vegetables that we're buying at the store, they are loaded, come to find out, they end up being loaded, maybe even more so, with toxins and chemicals than the non-organic alternatives. And that was shocking. And I remember we did a couple videos on that, and they're like, here you're paying all of this money for, you know, say organic blueberries, and come to find out they're ridden with more toxins because, and
Heavy
I think
metals,
some of it's like, you know, we're getting sprayed with toxins. There's toxins in the soil, there's toxins in the water, and these plants retain all of that. And the cows don't. So,
and I want to, Caitlin's asking a great question, and this speaks to, once again, the efficiency of the ruminant animal. You talk a lot about beef and pork. Just wondering what your thoughts are on chicken. Here's my thoughts on chicken, right? As far as for meat, it's too expensive. We know people, well, first off, we raise chickens, and when you raise them for meat, that's a $50 chicken. We know people that raise pasture raised, yeah, easy for me to say, pasture raised chicken, and they don't eat them because it's too daggum expensive. So when you compare beef to chicken, two things: beef is much more nutrient dense and a magnitude more fat, which is sustainable, right? You got to do all this goofy stuff to a chicken to just keep the skin on it. The skin is the only fat on the daggum thing, right? So, you know, and I like chicken mostly if it's deep fried in peanut oil, but
if you're feeding it, you're going to have to supplement at some point, most likely, unless you want them all to get picked off by predators. So if you're supplementing with some type of feed, if you're feeding you know, soy and all of the different grains and stuff, that chicken doesn't have 3 stomachs like a cow. So all of those processed grains are going into that animal's meat.
Yeah, and it's just so expensive. And to me, that expense is completely unsustainable, especially from a Cornish cross, right? You're always going to have to buy Cornish cross chicks, period. Right.
Yeah,
so you can be all whatever. And I'm not bashing for people that do this, but like the cost is incredible.
Well, we've raised our own chickens every single year. We hatch out all of our own layer hens, and then the boys we keep until they're big enough to be processed, and then we put them into our freezer. And I still got skinny chickens in my freezer right now, y'all, waiting to be eaten, and nobody wants to eat them. Okay, I think what happens to when you're doing this as a lifestyle, what happens is your body wants the most nutritionally dense food that you can have. So like for me, I loved chicken, I loved fish, I loved all these things before. I would prefer it, right? If we went out to eat, which we don't do that, I haven't done that in 20 years, but if we did in times past, you would get a steak, I would get a piece of fish all the time. But once I started eating, I didn't even like beef. I didn't even like steak. I didn't like red meat. Certainly didn't like bacon or anything like that. But once we started doing this, my taste changed. I would say within a week or two, my taste totally changed. And we still have fish in our freezer. And I'm like, when are we going to eat that? We are not going to eat that. I mean, unless if it's like a little side thing.
Well, I never wanted to buy fish.
No, because
you're going to have to eat it.
we want beef. Like, and we even had our
what's for dinner.
processor this time. She's going to do beef sausage for us. She's going to do beef bacon for us. So it's just amazing. And, you know, most places all around the world, people can grow ruminant animals. You can grow goats, sheep, even in the poorer areas, right? You can have a herd of sheep or goats, or if you don't have enough land for cows, right? And those ruminant animals, God designed them perfectly for us to consume. And those 3 stomachs that are in there, they do all of this work to convert that grass over to the perfect thing for our body. It's so nutrition dense.
And this is a great point. You know, this whole exact reason why I don't have to come up with this metaphysical Christian construct for why, like, I should biblically be allowed to eat carnivore is the same exact reason that all these carnivore doctors, you know, they try to take this evolutionary construct and explain it from evolution. Now, as we evolved over millions of years, clearly, because, you know, clearly there are different, you know, just like there are Inuits and Maasai and these different cultures that exclusively only ate meat, and they had very long-term longevity in what they want to call blue zones or whatever, excluding Loma Linda, in my opinion. But, you know, it's the same exact thing. Like, I think trying to come up with some Christian construct or some like, well, God doesn't want you to do that. Well, that's silly, because regionally, like, look, first off, Adam and Eve were one particular color. I have no idea what color that was. Right? Okay. Can we all agree that whatever nationality or non-nationality, this was before nations, y'all. So Adam and Eve were some particular color. I don't think that there's a very large percentage chance that they weren't my color.
Right.
Okay. And then there was this Tower of Babel, and there was this confusion, and God confounded the languages. And then we had all of this, you know, people naturally segregated into people groups because of the confusion of the language. Just like said, you know, nothing they imagine will be impossible for them. So I'm going to split up. I'm splitting the band up. Right. So then everybody like that can speak the same, they cluster together, and these genetic things happen, and people's color change and all this stuff. Right. And in every single one of those regions, historically and even now, diets are different. Right. And largely in part to prior to all this industrialization, the diets were incredibly different because you could only do certain things in season. Now they were able to preserve things. I know a lot of reading on grapes and different things. They were able to preserve many things in the Middle East, but just because you're preserving something doesn't mean that it's 80% of your diet all the way throughout the year. That just didn't happen.
Most of the time it couldn't be anyway. I mean, honestly, we have so much modernization. I mean, I have a room that I dedicated as a walk-in pantry. Most people, I mean, they just didn't have the means to preserve things like that. Wait, we got somebody from Laredo on here. There's some really cool people on here. Texas Farmer said, we can't butcher our lambs.
I couldn't keep our sheep alive fast enough.
I love it. We can't butcher our lambs fast enough. They multiply so fast.
I wish we had that problem.
And we are 100% hands off.
I was
That's
thinking
amazing.
Slaughtered the dumb things, and I didn't even mean to. I wasn't even trying to kill it.
We weren't good sheep farmers here, but maybe someday we'll try
maybe
it again.
Now that I'm of sound mind and body, maybe I could give it another whirl. But,
it would be cool to do it again. We definitely would have to get some different fencing. But that is awesome. Yeah.
God is eternal, and he has no creator, because God is, and God always was. So, and the creator is always greater than the created. So in order for things to be created, there logically has to be a creator,
Right.
because something in our scientific observation, something cannot come from nothing.
And I did want to go back up to Shelley
Wilmer.
earlier. Shelley was saying that regarding, was it your brother-in-law and your sister-in-law? I can't remember who it was in your family, but her comment up there, she said that they were eating a lot of pork
I saw
and
that.
different things. The people that were having trouble with the triglycerides. I think, you know, if you follow a lot of these different people online, you're going to see that they are very into like having their blood work done. All these doctors are going to be recommending have your blood work done.
And that makes sense. I mean, that's just, don't be dumb about it.
No, make sure that it's working. Tweak things if you need to tweak things.
And I think that's the other weird thing is they act like everybody's all like haphazard and reckless about it. No, people are being very wise about it.
Yeah, very methodical.
You know, pay attention.
Yeah.
And it just so happened that I got all my blood work done right before I started. So I have a great starting point.
Yeah.
And all my blood work was great. I was really surprised, y'all. I'm always waiting to get something terrible and bad. So I'm always waiting for something bad.
But you've lost a lot of weight in what?
10 pounds.
That's a lot of weight.
It's a lot of weight for me. I wasn't overweight. So
yeah. And
I'm actually kind of way too light. And as soon as I can start, if I can really start lifting again, I want to do that. But you know, I'm doing some push-ups and all that good stuff.
Yeah. And the great thing about carnivore is that if you need to gain weight, you're going to gain weight. And if you need to lose weight, you're going to lose weight. You're going to be optimal.
And if you ever were muscular, look, I'm telling y'all, if you're ever like, I haven't, because of the shoulder, I haven't lifted for real in like 5-6 years. And the muscle that came back was kind of weird. It's really strange because to not lift and to just have muscle literally come back is weird.
Yeah. Well, I think it's going to keep getting better and better because
I hope so. I mean, I don't want to be all like Pollyanna.
I think your testosterone and your hormones are increasing. So just naturally, if you just do a little bit.
I've never had low T.
Yeah.
All right.
You're going to see San Antonio.
Never had low T.
Ulysses from San Antonio.
Okay. Ignore me, Texas Mom.
He doesn't need any encouragement.
You just explained why God said cows are clean and pigs are not. Okay. I don't know how we just explained that, but that's okay.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's a preference thing. And I think that most of these doctors are going to say the best of the best is ruminant animals, you know, which is what God does instruct us to eat mostly. So, I mean, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. If you want to go out and have something, you're free to have it. We're not under any bondage of law. But if you are finding that you're eating bacon every day and then all of a sudden you realize that your bacon had a whole bunch of other stuff in it that you didn't know about and your blood work is not good, you're going to cut out the bacon. You know, like there's common sense.
Right. Yeah. And there's, you know, processed sugar is 1, addictive, 2, more addictive than crack, and 3, worse for you than crack. So, I mean, and I'm not advocating you smoke crack, but you know, it's like Christianity and sports, right? Sports is the Christian accepted idol that you can worship. In Christianity, you can worship all the sports balls and all the sports gods and all the sports stars, and anymore now you can worship all the Holly weirdos and all the Holly weird stars and all that stuff. Well, sugar is the socially accepted global crack that everybody can smoke. And that's just an absolute truth. And people are addicted to it. I mean, look at the obesity crisis and look at the heart disease crisis in America. Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah, so, it's crazy. It's wild.
I think we kind of pretty much talked about all of our, like, I mean, what we eat in a day. I think we kind of gave y'all, it's very, very simple. We're absolutely loving it. There's, you know, we are navigating it. We're pretty new to it still. So we're still figuring out, okay, maybe I want to add in butter, maybe I want to do decaf coffee and take out the caffeine. Maybe you're going to try some fasting windows and see if you notice a difference on that. But that's the fun of it, is that you can, and maybe the fasting window won't work. And maybe you'll be like, I feel like junk. I just need to eat. And then there's other doctors that say they want you to eat 3 times a day.
Hey,
and
I want to address the caffeine thing. Because so like, here's what I know about caffeine from studying Gerson therapy, doing Gerson therapy, that there's absolutely a positive therapeutic effect on your liver, right, from caffeine. Mm-hmm. And maybe we're not exactly talking about drinking it or not, but that's why I'm not anti-caffeine. Could I do without it and function without it? Yeah, of course I could.
Right.
I mean, and I don't need it, and I have energy and I sleep good, so I don't need it. I drink 1 cup of coffee a day. I'm not gunning coffee all day. I know people that drink pots of coffee a day. I know people that drink pounds of sugar, eat pounds of sugar a day too. It's just like,
right. And see what's happening to me. Like, I drank a quarter of this cup and I'm like done with it. And that's happening more and more and more with my coffee. I noticed it even with my morning cup of coffee, is like, I find it later and I'm like, oh, I don't even really want this anymore. Like, I think part of it is that you feel so good and you have so much energy that you're like, I thought I wanted that, but it's more of just the habit of me having it, but I didn't really need it anymore. So that's a thing. The other thing that I did leave out that we incorporated right from the get-go, well, maybe not right from the get-go, but after a couple weeks in, was the Relight. So
electrolytes.
The electrolytes by Redmond's, they make Relight. I know some people like the Element brand, which totally threw me off because I was looking for the word element, and then it's not. It's just LMNT or whatever. LMT.
They're proud of that stuff.
Yes. Yeah, so I'm like, where's element? I don't know what that is. But the Relight, if you buy it in the cans, it's like half the price per ounce as the little element packs. So,
and y'all, if you like our stuff, this is a value for value proposition. Please go to TheTexasBoys.com. Please check out our podcast, subscribe to our podcast, get our RSS notifications. We push out RSS, so it goes everywhere. So please subscribe, because, we get so stifled on here. It kind of you get tired of like trying to push out content, and they just want to like kick you in the forehead. And I super ultra hate them. Which helps me, and then they're doing the same thing to my buddy Chris and everybody else that wants to speak the truth. And, if you're watching people on here and they're not getting put in timeout and all this stuff, I don't even know. That's all part of the postmodern post-truth world, and it's being done for a reason, and maybe they're participating in it. I don't even know. But, it's amazing. Check out TheTexasBoys.com.
Thanks, Carlos.
It's a great time. Call Stacey. Check out the notes below. Call Stacey at Miles Franklin. If you're looking for gold and silver, there's some great pricing, great spreads right now. Take advantage of this opportunity, because here's what I can guarantee you, is that it's not going to stay there. Mm-hmm. It's not going to stay there. It's going to be bad, and it wouldn't hurt to have a little bit of silver, gold, lead, and steel. It wouldn't hurt to have some food in your pantry, even if it's not meat, y'all. Okay. Food other than meat is going to remain of a store of value. Okay. So just certain things to consider and think about, and appreciate y'all hanging out. Thank everybody on Rumble. We had a really great number. Sorry, I missed some people's questions over here. Somebody asked about how we're getting vitamin C. Oh. And you do get, and what kind of water we drink. We drink filtered water. We have a whole house filter. And we change those every 6 months or so. Mm-hmm.
And you can look up vitamin C. I would just recommend, if you have any questions at all, if you just put in like Dr. Berry in a YouTube search, Dr. Berry vitamin C, Dr. Berry cholesterol. If you have any questions or concerns about trying carnivore, even just as an elimination diet, I would just highly recommend it. We've done everything else. We had nothing to lose by trying this. And it turns out that it's working really well for us right now. And we're going to run with it as long as it's working. And so
and when it's not working, guess what, y'all? We're going to tell you, and we're going to say it.
Yep,
you know,
absolutely.
So that's the way we try to roll. We try to keep it real, be honest. I really hope, I mean, how awesome if you shared this with somebody and they lost a ton of weight and they felt great, you know. Oh, that's going to kill you. You just lost all that weight. You're wasting away to nothing, Tommy.
And it's really great if you can get your blood work done beforehand, and then after. That would be really great to know, because
plugging the podcast.
Oh yeah, the Fearless podcast. Yeah.
I keep plugging the podcast and I forget.
Prep for Eternity's on here. There's been several people that have bought meat from us that are really excited about trying carnivore or keto or something similar to that. So we're really encouraged about that, y'all.
Yeah, and we still have some quarters and halves and wholes available. So if you are local, you know, check out the Texas Boys if you want some beef or pork. And we're really excited about that, being able to provide that, and just the sustainability of that, and the revenue that generates for our homestead, and being able to not just provide for ourselves, but to provide for others. I mean, it's very, very satisfying.
You know what I did, Dragon of Hateful Retribution? You know what I did for my eggs? That's quite a name.
Yes.
I put away about 700 eggs this spring in 3.5 gallon BPA free buckets, and they Gamma buckets. And I'll tell you what, we have gone through at least half of those eggs already now, because I knew the eggs would slow down. They always do slow down production in the worst heat of the summer here in Texas. And so they slowed down, and now we're eating out of those eggs. And I even did 1 whole bucket of duck eggs, and I just got into them today, and the duck eggs are fantastic. So I did lime water. It's also called water glassing.
How come the Jewish guy, Ron, how come you're not on here hammering us for eating pigs? Just curious. Because we got these cyber Pharisees that want to tell us how bad it is to eat pigs, even though I read a bunch of stuff in the New Testament that doesn't quite say it that way, because there's an old covenant and a new covenant. I'm just curious why Carnivore Ron
has discretion,
isn't banging on all the pig stuff.
There's a thing called,
but I do appreciate it, Ron.
Discretion, and not trying to push everybody.
And if Roberta and Mona Taylor, if you thought I was talking to you, I was. So just, I don't want to infer anything.
Yeah, we're not.
But that's how I roll.
We're not here to talk.
And that's why people unsubscribe.
It's your channel. Yeah, I mean, we're not here to tell anybody how to eat.
Exactly.
Y'all. I mean, you can you can all do whatever. You're all grown up human beings. You can all make your own choices.
And if it's that terrible, you are going to die. So if it's this eternal covenant forever, then it's going to kill us. So we won't even be here talking to you. We're just going to drop dead from trichinosis and some kind of tapeworm. And, you know, and I'm not trying, you know, I've read the Bible from cover to cover.
Yeah, and you're
multiple
times.
You're
not mocking it. You're just
no, I'm not mocking it. But I'm being very transparent, and I have a deep conviction about it that doesn't transcend covenants or anything. That's all.
Right, and we're not supposed to.
It's my zodiac. Dragon of Hateful Retribution. Wow, I've never been into the
30-second conversation, benefit no one. We're supposed to love mercy, be just, walk humbly before our God. Yes, well, absolutely, you, Ron. You're right. And we're not supposed to use, you know, we're not supposed to judge each other in meat or drink and all that kind of stuff. So that's not what we're here to do. We're just here to share that we're trying something new. It's working out really good for our health. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. That's what I reminded my vegan friends this week.
And I'll be super honest with you. If it wasn't for the fat in bacon, Now it does taste great. Okay. I'm not going to lie. But if it wasn't for the fat and bacon, I would totally do without pork. Like I would, dude, 1,000 times prefer beef over pork.
Right.
Super honest, you know? And we've even, I said, look, I want at a minimum a 70-30, maybe an 80-20. And really the only pork I want is bacon, and I want it for the fat. And I can observe when I crave it and I eat it and I'm filled and it lasts. You know what I mean?
Right.
So
well, that's just the fat proportion.
Yeah, it's the fat. Yeah.
It's the fat
and I know
ratio.
what's doing it. It's not
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
anything other than that. It's that heavy fat ratio, and I can eat it and it fills me up and it's great.
Yeah. And we've done without bacon for like
And I get the
years.
clarity. Yeah.
Years.
Yeah. And we, you know,
we just introduced bacon.
And
back
same
in.
thing with pork. Like until we got those pigs last year, we hadn't even eaten any pork. You know what I mean?
Like
so
4.5 years, probably.
Yeah, probably like 4.5 years. We didn't, you know, and I continued to eat meat every day, and y'all kind of went more plant-based or whatever.
Yeah. And my vitamin D level went like way down, like scary down. And I think that was because I was not eating meat barely at all, maybe a couple times a week, a little bit, but so limited. I didn't want it. I've never been a big meat eater, and I just had no desire to really eat it. So even if I made y'all meals, you would eat the meat, the kids would eat the meat, and then I would just have like a tiny little bit. And even one of our children he wasn't a big meat eater at all. And a lot of times for mealtime, he would say, nah, I don't want it. He would just have the vegetables and stuff. So this has been a huge change for our family, and we're all doing really well.
And everybody's down. You know, that's, you know, the way we raise our children, we don't honestly, now we have rules and we have the way that we do things, but for a very, you know, it's, well, and I joke, this isn't the Ritz-Carlton and all these different things, but, you know, we give people latitude and like, no, you're going to eat 8 ounces of beef today. And it has been decreed from on high.
It was a gradual transition for the kids. Like even in those first couple weeks, I would have meat, but then I would pull out a big can of string beans, and I would serve string beans with the meat, just so they would have something else, you know. And then I remember we had like the last of the potatoes that our neighbor gave us. And do you remember James like chopped up the potatoes one night, and he said he was going to make homemade French fries with his burger, and he just enjoyed them, and then they were gone, and that's it. But there was a big mental thing of like doing away with all of this food that we were so accustomed to eating and just going to meat. There's definitely a
simplicity that's rather incredible. And it's still, you know, and in a way, not to get all philosophical, it is a dichotomy of life, right? And there's so much freedom in living a much more simplified life. And there's so much freedom in a simplified diet. There's so much less planning. There's so much less moving parts.
Now we can move to Alaska.
It's so less complicated. And as soon as it's 80 degrees in Alaska, I'm going to move to Alaska.
That's right. Let's go.
I will never move to Alaska.
All you have to do
Lord
is
willing, I will never move to Alaska.
Kill one moose a year.
Lord willing, I will never move to Alaska.
We might be chased to Alaska.
Well, that's a possibility, but Lord willing, of my own volition, sound mind, and body, I will not move to
We
Alaska.
could do it now, though. The freedom of not having to prep
Ken
all this food.
Wants to know about the bowel movements. And Ken, I'm going to tell you, if you're eating the fat, you know, your bowel movement might be 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 days apart because of the efficiency and effectiveness of the food.
Right.
But if you're eating the fat, there's not going to be.
I think he's talking to, that's true for now. I think he might be talking about the question of in the beginning, because I hear a lot of people say in the beginning, they're running to the bathroom constantly. Did you have that?
No.
Me?
But I am an anomaly.
I had that a little bit, like
Eating meat, yeah.
right in the beginning.
But see,
Like
that's more of a
for a
cleansing
couple
is what that is.
days,
That's a
it wasn't horrible. It was just like different. And I was just like, whoa, this is kind of weird. But it wasn't like
okay. That's
horrible. Is that what he was talking about?
yeah.
In the
That's
beginning?
just your body flushing
Yeah.
out all the other nonsense.
And my little kids had that just a little bit, very mild. But we went from a very clean, I'll say mainly plant-based diet to, you know, mainly because we did have meat still. But we went from a very, very clean diet to carnivore. So it was, I kept saying, the easiest thing we've ever done. We didn't go through keto flu. We didn't go through withdrawal symptoms. We weren't coming off of any type of like addictive food substances or anything like that. It was just all of that stuff was, it was very easy. It was the more the mental, like, oh wow, I'm not gonna eat this fruit forever anymore. Like it was just like having all those baskets of fruit in the kitchen and thinking, I'm not gonna have to buy that anymore. And then figuring out how will that be, you know, it was just mainly like all of the transitions in your mind, you know.
Yeah, that's what I was saying, Lord willing. I know to never say never. I've learned. I've learned the lesson. That's why I said Lord willing, right? Because I'm very familiar with the process of oh yeah, tell me you're not going to do something. I'll show you a trick or two, Sonny.
Her biological age is 16. What doctor is this? Did I miss the conversation?
I think I didn't see that. I think there's a lack of context there because his last comment was about his zodiac sign. So I'm very confused. But
okay.
Mainly eating burgers every day with the bread and fries is going to kill you.
Who said this?
Ken. Yeah, I was mainly eating burgers every day with bread and fries. Ooh, yeah. I have no gallbladder. It's real to be. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. Once you cut out the bread and the fries, you're going to do way, way better. Yeah. So you'll get through it. And I've heard a lot of people say the first 2 or 3 weeks are like the worst weeks of your life, but your body will get better and better. Every week after that, it will get easier and easier. So I don't mean to be like, it was the easiest thing we've ever done.
Fat. You can't eat enough fat.
Yeah. Definitely add fat back in. So what I've been doing in the beginning, I just cooked a lot of our meat in the Instapot, and then I saved all of that liquid, especially meat that had bones in it. And then that became like a gelatin in the refrigerator. And then I would scoop that out and add that back into everything. But here lately, the last couple weeks or more, I've been just using our bacon grease and then adding that back in. But like I said, I just ordered some grass-fed, grass-finished tallow. I got 7 pounds of it coming, and I got a really good price for it. So I'm excited to switch up from the bacon grease to the tallow. I just feel like that's a cleaner fat. And I definitely see, I know you can do this a whole lot of different ways and eat. There's so many different foods that you can eat on carnivore, but I want to, of course, we're doing this for health reasons, so we don't have to be perfect in it, but I want to be eating the cleanest that we can.
Yeah, and I can't imagine anybody not doing it for health reasons, because like if you could efficiently and effectively eat processed sugar and processed grains and all that stuff, obviously I would do it.
Right.
And if I felt good doing it, I would do it. Like that's what's weird about. Do you use
okay. High intensity health. Huh. I've never seen him. I'm not up on everybody. There's so many people in this carnivore world.
Oh, okay.
That
Dragon.
I hear a new name every day. So I'll have to look them up. High intensity health. Everybody's always name dropping these other doctors and other people, and it's fascinating.
It's very interesting, Ken, what I've experienced with sauces and stuff, that if I just use well, now we're adding butter back in, so I will absolutely be using butter and salt, and that's all I need for flavor. There's so much good flavor there. I really only need just a little bit of salt to amplify the flavor. And now I will absolutely infuse everything with butter, and I'll be good to go.
That's true. Now for the kids, they still use sauces once in a while, but it's not all the time.
No,
now it's
Lord.
not every single night that they're pulling out sauces. I just put some of that Redmond salt on their meat for them and, season it good with that. And most of the time they're not going to grab the sauces. Now tonight they went and grabbed ketchup, and they had ketchup. It's, organic, whatever. But they had that with their meat. I'm not going to be like a Nazi about it. Honestly, I haven't had sauce with my meat for, I don't know, a week and a half or more now. But tonight I just felt like I wanted a little bit of General Tso's sauce. And and I put a little bit on my meat, and I didn't want it the whole time even. I just wanted a taste of it. So don't torture yourself is what I'm saying, right. Ken.
He's saying, the seed oils and the sugars, that is what will kill you. That's why I despise that junk.
Yes.
It's like, what a devil possessed concoction. Like, can't they figure, because there's better ways that they could do it without having all that like chemical cocktail.
Yeah. Look for clean ingredients. If you're going to use sauces, there are some keto. I bought some Primal Kitchen.
Yeah.
They're a little bit pricier, and honestly, they're sitting in the refrigerator because nobody's really grabbing them. So I think it's a progression, and it's really neat to see things change just giving yourself time and grace, like where I'm not going and grabbing the blueberries.
And it's kind of the beauty of documenting this and sharing it. It's like you kind of can't, it's all there. It's just in real time.
The kids aren't going and getting the blueberries anymore. I've had the same bag of blueberries and strawberries in the bottom of the freezer. And I'm like, if you want them, you can have them. They're like, no, we just don't want them. So it's really interesting. And I noticed it probably a little over a week ago with the sauces. I said, do you see they're not getting the sauces out anymore? So it's just this gradual thing. It's just really neat.
Sure, you can eat eggs when you're starting out. Yeah. Yeah, I do. Yes. I do raw eggs in my coffee. So.
Highly recommend it. As many eggs as you want. If you want to eat 10 eggs in the morning.
And I love sunny side up eggs. I don't like scrambled. I did have some scrambled eggs today. I don't like scrambled as much, but
the only thing you want to add fat, so you want to add, if you're doing butter, you want to add butter into your eggs, or you want to fry them in some bacon grease, or in whatever fat. If you have tallow, you want to add that fat back into your eggs. Are pretty much perfect. They're the perfect food. So they're the perfect protein fat ratio anyway. But if you add a little bit of fat to that, it's just going to make you feel even fuller for longer. You're going to be more satisfied.
All right, y'all. Well, now that we have demonstrated that we are carnivore experts, we're going to sign off because we got to go to bed. Night, night, y'all. Thanks for hanging out.
See ya.
Don't forget the Fearless Podcast.
Go sign up for the Fearless Podcast and go check out TheTexasBoys.com if you can pick out anything over there for yourself. There's all kinds of stuff over there, y'all.
All right.